Today we're going to talk about sustainable take cost out. So what is take cost out? Well, first of all, it is the old-fashioned one-time event where we take cost out through our vendor pricing, through closing a gate at the evening or so forth. And that's the usual take cost out, and it's also very necessary and productive. But the real sustainable ones are the ones where we change gear and where we actually improve the way we do things also for the future. Right? So we're going to talk about sustainable take cost out today, and I've brought with me Doug Smith, the regional COO for AME, to talk about sustainable take cost out. So what are examples of that?
Well, one good example of sustainable taking costs out would be with our labor costs. Today they represent close to 50% of our total operating costs in our terminals, and we have a wide variety of the way we manage labor and what those costs are. For example, we have STS manning that ranges from 6.5 people per crane all the way up to 12 people per crane for the same similar result in operations. So that's a wide degree of cost we can look at. Similarly, in our RTGs, we have locations that might have 3 operators to 1 piece of equipment versus 5 operators across 4 and maintaining continuous operations. There are opportunities here to look at that and really look at change. To do that takes a little bit of review. We have to form a strategy. Where do we really want to go? What does it make sense for our labor costs? Where do we want to take that? We have to have an analysis and a thought process around where should we be and how do we reach for some of those terminals that have very good examples. If I'm a different terminal, how do I get there? What do I have to do?
Yes. And I've also noticed that many of our terminals, that the gang structure and the rotation and the rostering actually enables us to run our business around the clock 24/7. Which, on one side is positive. The negative is that we have, in many cases, zero flexibility.
Yes.
Right? So whether we have a ship or not, we have gangs running 24/7. We're paying for them, and they have nothing to do actually. And so
Correct.
Another part of actual improvements would be to have a different level of flexibility with our gang structure.
Yes, absolutely. And with that flexibility, we keep gates open, we're operating 24/7, and yet there's no business.
Yes.
And not to mention operating costs. But to get there, we're going to need better tools as well. And things like an LMS system would be a good support way forward to look at how to structure, to be aware of who is on the terminal, who's operating on different things, and how can you drive that flexibility.
So can you just explain to us, what does LMS mean?
Yep. LMS is the labor management system. Should have covered that a minute ago. And what it is an electronic way to both capture your rostering, to capture who's on, you integrate it with your access control, you work through your contract information, and it'll start even measuring performance. Who are your better operators? How do you deploy them? Best ways to deploy them. Again, if you have that flexibility with your labor.
Yes.
The more flexibility you can get, the more powerful this tool can be.
Yes. So what are really the next steps for a terminal? I guess what you started saying was, each business unit should have their own strategy in place, right? So we shouldn't limit ourselves to have a plan for how we reduce or avoid an inflationary increase in salaries next year. But we should have a more holistic plan and say, where are we today in terms of our manning ratios of operators versus equipment, how many people does it take to man a crane?
Yes.
6 versus 12 is the variation right now in AME, and what is the flexibility we have in the gang structure? Right?
Correct.
So from that, it would be logical to establish a 2 to 3 year plan.
Yes.
And that outlines how will we, together with the unions and the relevant stakeholders, renegotiate and adjust some of these here towards a more efficient way of working. That was the encouragement, right? And then the other one was consider a more sophisticated labor management system to help you drive how you manage your labor and how much overview you have of it, and how dynamic can you change it, right, from one shift to another, calling different people in and so forth. You can only do that if you have some kind of support in an IT system and not paper and pen. Is that the?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So what's the next step here?
Well, we recently did distribute a benchmarking study to all the terminals with also a cost per move. That will give you a frame of reference of where you are compared to the region. And I think that's a good place to start to look at and go, well, what's realistic? What are those next steps in your analysis? What would it make sense to go forward to get the manning scales, to get the flexibility as a good 2 to 3 year plan? And looking at the analysis, of course, working with us here in the region, we're happy to help out on what it would take, how to get there, and formulate what is the priority. Is it the flexibility? Is it the manning scale? Is it a little bit of both? And what is the opportunity to take that forward?
All right. So kind of in a nutshell, sustainable improvements. Right?
Yes.
Sustainable improvements as opposed to only focusing on cutting costs, as we also need to do, especially in the areas where we have some challenges with trade volumes. But we need both.
Yes.
But the working smart with sustainable improvements is, well, the word says it, sustainable.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.